Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into Decker Reviews. Before we get started, if you like the content that I'm dropping, please go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to be notified for more content. And if you have any other ideas for content that you'd like me to review, go ahead and drop a comment down below. Now without further ado, let's jump right in. Now the channel that I'm going to be reviewing today is called SkillUp. And SkillUp, in a broad sense, is a video game review and news channel. And now the channel primarily focuses on producing reviews of popular video games, but they also have a weekly news segment that the channel recently started. Now today, I'm going to be focusing mainly on the review portion of the channel. Now what is unique about the reviews that SkillUp publishes is that he takes time to deliver a lengthy and in-depth review of the games that he looks at. To do this, he takes time to set up a core message that he wants to deliver about the video game he's looking at. And to do this, he'll take time to set up this message through a good, lengthy introduction. This will help establish the main message that he seeks to make, and he also will make this message in great detail. To give you kind of an example of how long his reviews are, some of his reviews can be as short as 20 minutes, while others can be as long as an hour. While it seems quite lengthy to have a review so long, I found myself engaged by the message he was trying to deliver. The time spent in his reviews didn't feel padded or drawn out. It simply meant that his message required a lot of detail to appropriately convey. Now that's kind of his style of review. Considering what his takes on his reviews are, some of them have not been the most popular. For example, last November, Assassin's Creed Valhalla was released by Ubisoft, and SkillUp did not really enjoy it. He found it to be long, boring, and drawn out to the point that the little value it had was diminished by the length and the grind of the game mechanics and the monotony of the narrative. Now this stands in stark contrast to how most people received the game. Most people really enjoyed it, they thought it was a good addition to the Assassin's Creed game series, and found it to be well worth its money. While some may disagree with his take on Assassin's Creed Valhalla, to me that means that this reviewer is willing to take risks and to stand away from the common narrative of a video game. Now it's important to note that him, like many video game reviewers, kind of failed the widely known Cyberpunk 2077 test. He was all for it, even bugs and all, and he still has yet to walk back or retract his review like other YouTube reviewers have done. Now, all that being said, I find SkillUp's method of reviewing games to be incredibly unique and compelling to me. His well thought out and constructive messages help me as the viewer better understand and feel what the game is about. Now, that is what I think makes this game channel so unique. It's not a simple conveyance of information, as some channels are, which is totally fine. I think that information is very helpful. But what SkillUp does so well is he conveys kind of an overarching message or feeling about the game, on top of communicating all the necessary information I believe someone needs to make an educated purchase of a video game. Now, the kind of people who will enjoy this are people that obviously are into video games and have the time to spare for a well-articulated and lengthy review. If you're someone who's looking for shorter reviews, I would suggest looking elsewhere. I'll make channel recommendations of those shorter review channels in the future. Please stay tuned for those. Now, before I end, let me show you a quick introduction of one of SkillUp's reviews, just so you get a sense of what I'm talking about when he's setting up a message.
On May 7th, 2020, Ubisoft's head of communication tweeted this: FYI, it won't be the longest or biggest game in the series. They addressed criticism on this one. What was the criticism, you might ask? It was the criticism from a huge section of players, myself included, that felt like Assassin's Creed Odyssey was a pretty great game, but that it was just too long and too bloated and way too full of bullshit. So then you hear this guy say, hey, we're addressing the criticism. And people like me are like, oh, cool, great. We're going to get a more focused Assassin's Creed game that trims the fat and values our time more. That's how I felt when I booted up this game. Maybe that's how you feel right now as you think about whether or not to buy Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Allow me to disabuse you of this notion right now. Not only is Assassin's Creed Valhalla not shorter than Odyssey, it's way longer and way more boring. Assassin's Creed Odyssey took me around 55 hours to complete, finishing all major quest lines and killing every member of the Order. I'm now at 67 hours played in Valhalla, and I haven't even rolled credits yet, because the last Order member seems to be hidden behind open world bullshit that I wouldn't dare try to complete. There are no major quest lines for me to complete now, and yet it still says progress the story to find the last clue. I have no idea what to do and absolutely no desire whatsoever to try. After 67 hours of endless, repetitive tedium, you really need to say enough is enough. It's not the length of this game that bothers me, by the way. I like putting hours into games. Just recently, I've put 50 hours into Hades and 60 hours into Risk of Rain 2 and 50 hours into Hunt Showdown. I spent 50 hours with the Avengers and I didn't even like that. But I liked it a hell of a lot more than I liked Valhalla. The problem with Valhalla is that it's a perfectly fine game that becomes utterly insufferable owing to its length. None of it is good enough to demand 67 hours of your time. The exploration isn't good enough. The writing isn't good enough. The combat isn't good enough. The progression systems aren't good enough. None of it is good enough to demand that amount of your time. And it's a shame, because there are improvements in this game versus Odyssey. Things like the whole assassin thing coming back into focus, and the raiding system, it's pretty good. And there are some sections of this game, stuff that I won't spoil, but they're actually excellent. If you had just focused on those sections and you doubled down on the stuff that works, you'd have like a 30 to 40 hour game that I would right now be recommending to you. I'd say, look, it's not perfect, but it's some good open world RPG fun. It'll do the job. Go and enjoy yourself, right? Instead, the length of this game brings all of its shortcomings into sharp relief. The endlessness of it becomes a meditation on its failures as you suffer through yet another boring cutscene full of characters you don't care about, sending you to yet another fort or bandit camp so you can button mash your way through its subpar combat, knowing that no interesting loot or progression awaits you at the other side. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is longer than Odyssey. It's way more arduous, it's way more boring, and unlike Odyssey, there's absolutely no payoff for the time invested.
And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have figured out a little bit more of what this channel might have to offer. If you're interested, please check it out in the description below. Other than that, thanks for tuning in, and take it easy.